On today's show, the San Diego Padres are back to the Padresing that we all know and hate. Losing this series against the Seattle Mariners, going to be recapping that, taking any positives that I can from a series that sets the Padres back in a big major way, as well as looking ahead at the team going forward. Yeah, gotta look for the positives, guys. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, July 11th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Javipeno, the best handle in the game, JAVIIPENO, and at LO_Padres for updates on the show. Go check out my work over at justbaseball.com, a fantastic website where I write about general baseball stuff and Padres stuff. Going to be writing about Michael King soon, and we will be talking about him soon on this episode and how he was very, very good, and dare I say, one of the only positives of the last 48 hours, as well as my new podcast, Baseball versus the World, general evergreen fun baseball topic. Go check that out. Man. Yeah, that was a bad series, guys. That was a really, really bad series. You come off of the series loss against the D-backs, in which I actually think that was just, every now and then that just nonsense like that happens. You had the bad C start. That wasn't great. But overall, just not a good series for the Padres, considering that I, for one, was someone on the show talking about how I do not think the Mariners are actually that good. And I think that when the time comes, they will fall off. I think they can be a team that falls off significantly in the second half. I just don't think that you can win that many games when your offense is -0 every game and you're relying on 4 starters and bullpen to be just perfect all year long. That's usually not a sustainable formula for success. I'm not saying that that's what they wanted, but that's how it's been so far. But of course, the Padres, as usual, they find a way, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about that. But first, I just want to mention really quickly, this episode of Locked On Padres is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. So check out Booking.com right now for your stay, whenever that is. Go check that out, guys. All right. Look, I know what you're thinking. I don't want you to recap. I don't want your thoughts, Reyes. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I want answers. I'm full of rage right now. Maybe that's what you're thinking. Maybe you're driving in your car right now, really frustrated as the Padres, 49-45 heading into this series. It's the best record they had all year. You had the walk-off against the D-backs on Friday. It was really, really fun, right? You had that great walk-off. They got close on Saturday, and then they just got bad on Sunday, which, again, was just just really stupid, in which Dylan Cease, gave up those 2 home runs. But here's the thing. Michael King, yesterday's game, comes in and gives a great start. Let's start with some positivity, right? 6 innings, 1 earned run on 3 hits, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. His most strikeouts in a while, actually. It's the most strikeouts since his June 12th start against the A's. So not a coincidence that he had this many strikeouts against another bad team. But even still, Michael King has been so good for so long. We've talked about it a lot, that he's just kind of come into his own and just doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. By the way, the 2 earned runs that the Mariners score, one of them was not charged to him, because what have I been telling y'all for a while? And I'm not trying to say that in like a I told you so way. I mean, I am, but I don't mean it like in a mean, like you guys should have listened to me way. But Luis Arraez is a bad defender. Lets a ball go right through his legs, which ends up leading to a run. Just really stupid. Look, again, Arraez, he's a good player. And I think that what needs to be reminded, and I think some people might be surprised a little bit by this, is that I think Arraez actually gets covered in a way that's really unhelpful for average baseball fans. And that's usually from legacy media. That's usually from the old heads, I should say, who act like batting average is the be-all and end-all for baseball performance, right? Where they ignore defense and they ignore that you do need extra base hits and you need power. Or you need a good walk rate. All of which Arraez doesn't really have. And if he's not hitting at a superstar level, like he was last year or the year before when he won the batting titles, he's got a 719 OPS. With the Padres right now. He's been bad for a while, and it is worth talking about because he's also not giving you anything defensively. As fun as he can be, right? He's a fun player. I have no issues with people saying he's their favorite, right? Because he's fun. But all in all, I've said this before, but I think that there's a lot of like fans that might not necessarily realize that if you go and look at wins above replacement, Ha-Seong Kim is second on the team to Jurickson Profar. Kyle Higashioka has more wins above replacement than Luis Arraez this year. That's because his defense is that bad, and if he's not hitting at a superhuman level, 340 on base, guys, that's not that incredible. So while yes, he has the 313 average, it's basically just only singles, and he draws a walk every now and then. So Arraez has really not been very effective. 109 WRC plus on the season, 0.5 wins above replacement. That's bad. Manny Machado has officially surpassed him, by the way, just to give you an idea that Arraez, now here's the thing, Arraez doesn't have to be that amazing, but they do need more from him, especially if he's not going to be playing a good first base or second base, and especially right now, which is that he's in a middle of a really, really bad slump, and that hurts the Padres at the top of the order, and it's really, really frustrating, right? He started off really solid with the Padres. He had the game winner, right? We cannot forget that. That was really fun. You know, when he first got to the team, he was excellent, especially in May, 875 OPS, but he had a 624 OPS in June, 257 average, 288 on base. 257 average isn't that bad, but he never walks. So that's a problem, right? And then this month, so far in 7 games, 483 OPS. So I'm really hoping, and I actually am somewhat confident that he will start becoming that, like, at least low 700s OPS guy. I still think he can do that. I still think this is a guy that has a role that fits this Padres team. That's why the trade made sense. But alas, really bad for him. 1 for 4 in this game. And in general, the Padres are bad, right? But let me just really quickly just mention about Michael King. Just really deserves a lot of credit. I just think that this guy has bounced back in a major way. He's not giving up hard contact. And like I said, all the hits basically were singles that came from the Mariners today, right? And they all came in the first 6 innings. Those are the hardest hit balls of the day. They didn't get necessarily lucky, right? The expected batting average on all of them was high. But I'm just saying they were all singles. It's just really annoying that the Padres could not match that, and that the fact that the Padres are losing and not scoring in Petco with all those big crowds when you really need to try and split this series and get to those 50 wins. That way you can, I don't know, frankly, just say that you have 50 wins, and that way you just don't feel like you are undoing your success. That's a big problem with the Padres this year. Now, it's a 2-game sweep, but even still, losing series like this, I told you, I was happy that at least the Padres got the 1 game against the D-backs. But what keeps happening is they lose all the ground they gain with the losses they have. They're kind of like if you guys know the Superman Darkseid meme, when he's like trying to fly past him and Darkseid like grabs his cape, or maybe anyone who's seen the first Avengers movie, you know, when like the Hulk, that guy like shoots at him from the plane and he's like, he ejects, and then the Hulk catches it. That's the Padres to their fans right now. The fans are the ejector seat trying to get out and be like, let's be excited. I literally tweeted on Friday about how this team feels magical. It's starting to have that vibe to it after the walk-off for Manny. And then what do? They have a series like this, right? And it was just really stupid, really disappointing. It's also really disappointing that the Padres defense is bad this year. It should not be bad this year. I know that they acquired Arraez. I just ranted about him in this first segment, but you know, you still have Manny, you still have Tatis, you still had Bogaerts, you still have Cronenworth, you still have Ha-Seong Kim, you still, I guess right now, you have Higashioka playing really well behind the dish. And Jackson Merrill's playing good defense, but they've just been so inconsistent. Tatis wasn't playing like a platinum glove while he was healthy. Machado wasn't playing like a gold glover while he was healthy. So it's just a lot of annoyances, right, with this team right now. So it's really frustrating. But I want to talk more about this series, and I want to talk specifically about why yesterday's loss made me infinitely more upset than the first loss in the series. And we'll recap that game really quickly too. But first, folks, I need to talk to you about something very special. Some might say it's the most special thing of all. Because let me tell you, when you're going out, you want to look good, man. And you know what's hard? Especially for people, the uggos like me. I'm not saying you, my beautiful listeners, are uggos, but I am, believe me. And let me tell you, it can be hard to, get your fashion going. It's tough. But thankfully, today's sponsor, the good folks over at Stitch Fix, they can give you the instant confidence that the outfit can give you. They help you out big time. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. That last part, most importantly. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. Professional stylists, they help you find all the new on-trend favorites, anything that fits you. You want the 5 just for me plus sizes. You can get all these 5 different outfit combinations. They have all these different advice things that they give you, and they find what works for you. right? They're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to turn you into Tom Cruise. Well, maybe you're not Tom Cruise. Or I'm going to turn you into Sydney Sweeney. Well, maybe you're not Sydney Sweeney. Whatever it is, whatever the biggest stars are, take your pick. There's like a new one every other day. That's what it feels like to me. But anyway, whatever you want, they have you covered. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. And let me tell you, they save you the time and effort. Style that makes you feel as good as you are and you should be, folks. Go check out stitchfix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $25 off your first 4 fixes for limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of signing up. Go and check it out. And just like that, everybody, here we are back on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing your team every day. Follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and tweet at me or DM me your frustrations about this series because I'd love to hear them. Here's why this game was more frustrating, and it's very, very simple. First of all, yes, it is very dumb that the Mariners offense, with how putrid they've been this year, and I still stand by it. I don't think they're a very good team. They might get better in the second half. Maybe Julio wakes up, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a couple things. Speaking of Julio, throwing out Donovan Solano at home was a big moment in this game and a really frustrating one. Would I have sent Solano? No, I really wouldn't have sent Solano. That reeked of desperation from the Padres and third base coach. I just think that, I don't know, I just don't like that they sent him there. I just really, really do think that the Padres, in that situation, right, the fact that you are going to have Solano, who isn't necessarily like a fast player, try and score there, I just really, really didn't like. You had some double plays from Solano today as well, so a bad day for him overall, if we're being real. Of course, can't really be mad at anyone in particular on the offense today because everybody was bad. Just the send there, I'm not sending my guy on Julio Rodriguez. I'm just not. I'm not doing it. This is a guy who's been a very good defensive player at minimum his whole MLB career, basically. So I think that was a mistake, and I think you should have kept the pressure on because the pitcher for yesterday, Bryce Miller, was not very good. He was actually quite bad in a lot of different ways. First of all, he went 6 innings, no earned runs, no walks, only 1 strikeout, and he only got 1 strikeout at the very end to Jake Cronenworth after Profar had gone on base. Or not at the very end, but the end of his start, I should say. Just not great. He was not really making that many swings and misses in this one. He had 4 whiffs on 24 swings for his fastball, right? Like, this was not a great performance from Bryce Miller. Like, he was not very good. The Padres clearly saw his stuff. They were not being fooled by anything that he threw. But unfortunately, folks, it did not matter because the Padres just couldn't get out of their own way. Solano grinding into a double play in this one. That was really annoying. Total of 7 people left on base. Just really, really rough. A lot of ground balls. And also, by the way, I will give one thing to the Padres. It does seem like just the ball didn't go their way, right? They had a lot of hits today. David Peralta, he had a line out with a 360 expected batting average. Brett Sullivan, he had a flyout, but it was a home run in 16 out of 30 ballparks, right? So, like, in another world, that gives us the lead. Jake Cronenworth, not Jake Cronenworth, Luis Arraez, 940 expected batting average in one, and it's a line out. 480 expected batting average, and it's a ground out. That was in the 3rd inning, the other one in the 6th inning. In the 7th inning, Manny Machado, a ground out with a 530 expected batting average. So they did have some hits not go their way, and considering that they only needed like 1 or 2 hits to get back in this game, that means a lot, right? So it was really, really frustrating for the Padres, all in all. And it's especially frustrating when you consider the fact that Bryce Miller, heading into this start, had a 6.28 ERA on the road this season. I mean, what are we doing, guys? What are we doing? And then, as if we have to rub salt in the wounds, when Andres Muniz gets brought in, which I think was smart by them, right? The Padres were somewhat getting on base. Arraez got the single, and then Brett Sullivan was able to move after he had walked, and then Profar strikes out. I thought that was like, hey, Bob Melvin, remember a few years ago when the best batter on the Phillies was in the NLCS and you decided not to use your best closer? The Mariners and Scott Service clearly got the memo on that one, bringing him in. He strikes out Profar. Can't be mad at Profar. He's been so good this year. He's been one of the best players, if not the best player in all of baseball in high leverage situations, but even still a frustrating game for him. And then Jake Cronenworth, he gets a walk in the bottom of the ninth. Manny Machado draws a walk. Donovan Solano gets a ground out, but it does move the runners over. But then Jackson Merrill strikes out. And David Peralta, who frankly should just not be on this team right now. They need someone better. I mentioned a bunch of other guys yesterday. I actually mentioned Taylor Ward of the Angels, and I believe he's getting traded somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. I think that might have come out. And that might have been a guy that helped. But yeah, just really, really disappointing game for the Padres all in all. And some bad at-bats too. Like, Profar deserves some credit, but there was 2 at-bats in particular in this game. The Andres Munoz at bat, well, yes, I am applauding the Mariners because they should bring in the closer, even if it's not in the 9th inning because you're facing an elite batter. Every single strike in the at bat was down and below the plate. Like, just all pitches down. So an uncharacteristically bad at bat for Profar, right? Like, literally all the 5 pitches, none of them were in the zone, and they were all down middle, right? Or low mid? Is that how you describe it? Just low mid, like middle but low. Like, it did not hit the strike zone. I don't know why I'm having struggle with this, but that was a bad at bat. And then you also had the at bat from Machado against Voth, in which it was 3 pitches and then all of them outside, and he swings at one that's like low and outside too. It's like, come on, guys. Like, that was really, really rough. The Profar one hurt more because runners were on base, but really bad performance from the Padres. And it's just, there's nothing to really like break down other than just being frustrated, because that was just the type of game that is just a reminder of one. I've also been saying, look, I believe in the Padres. I still think they can make the playoffs. But I have been adamant from day one, and again, I don't mean this in a condescending or even patronizing way to be like, oh, I told y'all so, but this is why I'm adamant that they do not go big at the deadline. I want to give up back-end prospects for some guys that will fill innings, some guys who will be decent. Carlos Estevez is one of them, right? I think you can find decent relievers all over the place in baseball, even if they're just rentals. You don't have to get your Mason Millers. I'm not about investing heavy in this team because this is what they do. Right? They have these really, really stupid losses that undo it, and they've got some tough series coming up, right? After this series, they've got Atlanta this weekend, which I know that they beat them last time, which is, again, why I have optimism. The Padres play well against good teams. They play Atlanta, then they play at Cleveland, then they play at Washington, which is good. Can't wait to play them again. I might try and go to that game. Then they play at Baltimore, and then they got the Dodgers. So if you are a strength of schedule person, it's not going to get any easier. You needed to win these series to start the month, right? Like, or at least it would have been preferable if you didn't put yourself behind the 8 ball. So again, we're going to see, but these are going to be some big series, right? And then after that, August gets just a tad bit better. They play the August schedule for the Padres. In theory, it should be a dream, right? They play the Rockies, then the Pirates, then the Marlins, then the Pirates, then the Rockies. That's crazy. Like, August, there's the potential that the Padres roar right back. It's a long season, but all in all, I share your frustration. That was stupid and it was annoying. Yeah, I mean, not much else to say. We got to talk about Tuesday's game. Because Tuesday's game was, again, that one not nearly as frustrating for me personally, just because I think that it was expected that the Padres would lose that game. We talked about it before the series even started, and that was that, they didn't quite have the starting pitching power, right? They had one of their elite pitchers and then one of our worst pitchers, who did get sent down, by the way, which I think is worth talking about. But first, before we talk about all that, guys, and maybe give you at least a couple of positive notes, you know what I'm saying, man? You know what I mean? Just a little positivity, man. You know what I mean? The only positive today was Michael King. God bless him. Isn't that funny? Remember when Michael King was like the bane of my existence at the beginning of this year? Really crazy stuff. Anyway, before we get into that, guys, I want to take a second to talk to you about our good friends over at which place? The place we talked about at the beginning of the pod. That's our good friends over at Booking.com. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, because if you are in the US of A, let me tell you, everyone always talks about bucket list. I want to visit every MLB stadium. Well, Booking.com can help you out with that. I'm going to Boston this summer, probably. I'm going to Philly a bunch of times. Well, that one doesn't require necessarily Booking.com, but for hotels and stuff, it does. Let me tell you, that's what they do. Bed and breakfast, hotels, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more with Booking.com, including if you want to go visit your rival city. So if I wanted to go to LA, guess what I'm using? I'm using Booking.com. Damn right, folks. Go check them out. It is really, really fantastic. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts. If you're bringing family, if you're bringing your kids, they have all that stuff that they can help you work out as you plan your perfect stay. So go check it out, guys. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. But that's not all. One of my favorite sponsors. They've been here for a long time. Because here's the thing. If you get the travel, you still need the tickets. Well, guess who's there for you? It's GameTime, folks. Here's the thing about GameTime. It is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go, wait for it, down. They actually go down. They're like the Padres. It goes down right when you need them, right? No, I'm kidding. But seriously, they go down the closer you get to first pitch, which is great because if you don't want to have the guesswork when you're buying tickets, right? And that's what GameTime does. It takes that out of buying tickets. They have last minute deals. They have flash zone deals. They have event cancellation protection. The lowest price is guaranteed. Job loss protection. You can view images of the seats if you want. If that helps you out. If that's floats your boat better, they have that for you. So go check that out, guys. Save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports and other things, concerts, comedy, theater, and many more. And they're saving you money as you do so. And if you find better seats in the zone that you get, you can get them. GameTime will cover you for the difference. Really cool stuff, guys. So go check that out. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed with GameTime. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are thriving and still vibing here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Let's talk about that first game. Just a little bit before we close out this episode. The Mariners win 8-3. Really miserable. But again, as we talked about, I was not expecting too much from the Padres in this one. It's not just because the Mariners are a good offense, but it's also because Logan Gilbert was on the mound and he did great. 7 2/3, 3 earned runs actually. The Padres did get to him a little bit, especially later in the game, but 1 walk, 7 Ks. They weren't able to get to him enough, unfortunately. A lot of it coming from home runs, specifically Jake Cronenworth and Kyle Higashioka. Cronenworth with a solo shot, Higgy with a 2-run shot. It's amazing. And by the way, the Padres are doing it. They're just starting Higgy, and they should, because at the minimum, he's giving you better defense, right? And apparently, Higgy all of a sudden is just an offensive superstar. Isn't that fun? Isn't that great, guys? Don't you love that? I'm not making that up, by the way. He's just an offensive superstar. He's officially had his career high in home runs this year. He has 11. His previous career high was 10, and he hit 10, by the way, hilariously enough, 3 times, and they were all the 3 last years. He's had 10 the last 3 years. So that's just funny that immediately with the Padres. And by the way, in less games. So this has been really impressive from Higgy, and I'm almost starting to believe that maybe he found something with the power stroke. Maybe he can be one of those catchers. Now, a 552 slugging is a lot, right? But maybe he can be one of those guys that just puts one in the seats every now and then and plays good defense. If he does that, he's like a 2-win player. And that's a big deal. That would be like the best Padres catcher since like Derek Norris, right? So that would be really cool, but we'll see on that. That's basically it for the Padres in that one. Unfortunately, in this one, the real story is Adam Mazur. He did get more strikeouts than walks, but 4 2/3, gave up 5 earned runs on 7 hits, 2 walks, 6 Ks. The guy just isn't ready, right? Like, the guy just isn't ready. He hasn't been ready for a while, and it's unfortunate. But alas, that's where we are, and that's why prior to yesterday's game, they optioned him to AAA El Paso and then recalled Logan Gillespie from El Paso. So, yeah, I think they even knew. They're like, look, I know that we have Darvish and Musgrove like on the mend right now. We don't know when Musgrove's coming back. Darvish is dealing with some personal matters. And, you know, I think the team was like, but we can't afford to keep sending this guy out here. He's clearly not ready. And frankly, he's been so bad that I am wondering if this is just one of those guys that might not fully have it. Usually, like, if you're young and inexperienced, it's like, okay, but you were coming from AAA. It's not like you are a 19-year-old kid, right? This guy's 25. So I'm just saying, I'm a little bit worried. But again, when have the Padres ever shown us that they know when to promote prospects correctly? With the exception of Jackson Merrill, and is that it? Real question, guys. Is Jackson Merrill like the only one that, sorry, I dropped something. Is Jackson Merrill like the only prospect they brought up kind of bullishly and fast that like worked out? I'm trying to think. Tatis technically, yeah. Is that it? Oh, man, that's not a good showing. But anyway, guys, in all seriousness, I really think that that was a bad loss, but I do believe, like, hey, it happens, and they weren't expected to win that game anyway. What I think was more frustrating is that Yuki Matsui, as good as he'd been looking for so long, and this game was out of reach, hadn't given up on a run since the very first game of June, since that last blown save, right? But he gave up a run against the D-backs on 2 hits, and then he gave up 2 earned runs on 3 hits against the Mariners. Now, the game was already out of reach, so I appreciate it not just being in a high-leverage situation, but Matsui is becoming one of those guys where as soon as you begin to trust him again, he gives up some stuff. But again, that game was out of reach, right? That is, I'm just saying, it was out of reach, so this isn't like a high leverage thing, and you can't blame Schilt for putting him in there. You have to fill innings at some point. But really annoying, and, you know, we talked about this in the D-back series. Corbin Carroll, Eugenio Suarez, both massively disappointing players, especially the former, right? Corbin Carroll, like a 76 WRC plus, what does he do? He homers on like the first pitch, right? Like that's what he does. In this game, Julio, we talked about this. He's been bad. 4 for 4 in this game with 2 RBIs, a double, and a home run. Like, of course we're the team that wakes up Julio Rodriguez. Now, granted, he had a dreadful game yesterday. 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, golden sombrero. But even still, it's just a very, like, if you're just a fan, you're watching, you're like, of course the Padres did that. You know what I mean? So really bad showing overall. They're unable to hit Saucedo, and they're unable to hit Santos. What can I say? Bad series, guys. Like, really bad series. I understand people being really pessimistic about the team right now. I'm still faithful. Like, I still think that this team can turn it around. I just mentioned to you, they've got a tough stretch cup coming. So they just need to not, do what they always do, which is that they go out, they beat the Braves, and then next week they get swept in both series. That's the type of thing that the Padres would do. So we have to see. It's hard to be mad at any players in specifically right now. It's just more of a team thing, and they really should have won that game yesterday. I already mentioned the ground ball luck not going their way, the fact that Bryce Miller isn't very good, especially away. He has been bad, like 6.28 ERA, guys, away. That's kind of inexcusable, and some really bad at-bats. So a bad series for the Padres that you just have to hopefully shake off. They've got a day off, right? They've got a day off. Bullpen will be rested. And then on Friday, it's expected to be a matchup between Randy Vasquez and Spencer Schwellenbach. Don't know who that is, but he's got a 5.02 ERA, so maybe they could hit him. Braves are good, but remember, the Braves are also vulnerable, right? They've lost Acuna. They've lost someone else that I can't think of. And they've had Matt Olson, Michael Harris, and who's the last one? Sean Murphy, kind of, right? Like, they've had a lot of players regress heavily this year. So don't be that freaked out of the Braves. Good team, but don't think that this is some sort of, like, unbeatable juggernaut. They're not right now. They're just not all that special. I really don't think so, right? So hopefully they get to avoid, getting absolutely killed by them and then making me look stupid come Monday, right? So Friday, that is the matchup. Then on Saturday, it's Matt Waldron versus Reynaldo Lopez. He's been very good this year. That's going to be a problem, but also a good, entertaining pitching duel. And then on Sunday, it is going to be Dylan Cease versus Chris Sale. They need Dylan Cease to have a good start on Sunday. Like, they need it. And I understand that he technically was going to the last one, but I would just like some, don't blow it. You know what I mean? I know that 3 earned runs in 7 is good, but it's the way it happened in the 7th. And you gave up the 2 earned run, which was essentially the end of the game. It ended up ruining us. But alas, what can you do? What can you do, guys? Last thing I want to mention is that Xander Bogaerts, this is from AJ Casavel, got a bunch of live at-bats pre-game today, maybe 15 to 20 of them. He'll play another rehab game or 2 with Lake Eisner this week if all goes well. He says he thinks he'll return this weekend against Atlanta. Says the shoulder fracture has healed isn't an issue. That is a plus at minimum for defense. That means you can put him there, and Arise can be the DH. You don't have to put him at second or first. That's good. You'll have 2+ defenders in Cronenworth at first base and Xander Bogaerts at second. Look, I know that it's not like we're getting the Xander Bogaerts back. We'll have to see how he is. I know he's been rough, but in fairness, the last time he played, now granted this was before it, and if this is what Casavel's saying, which is that the shoulder is not a problem, then we go back to the wrist. The hard hit rate right before he got injured was going up very steadily, and they had gotten a new bat for him that has a little bit of a knob, which apparently makes it a little bit easier on the wrist when you're swinging. So be hopeful is what I'm saying. And I'll give you another comp. Carlos Correa. Am I using a Puerto Rican player to make a point? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You guys might know me by now and what I like to, what my agenda is. Last year, 96 WRC plus for Carlos Correa in the first year of his major contract. That was the first year. This year, 148 WRC plus. He's 3 wins above replacement, playing great defense. He's back. You know what's one commonality there? Some injury stuff. So I'm just saying, it's if you want to look at a Correa, if you want to look at a Marcus Semien, you want to look at a Trey Turner, you want to look at all these guys around the league that were really bad their first year or so with their big contract, Xander Bogaerts can absolutely be that, because I have no reason to believe that he's just going to become this guy who is about as effective and at bat as Austin Hedges was when he was a catcher for the Padres, right? Or about as effective as Matt Carpenter was last year, right? So I'm just saying, based on prior things, based on everything I just mentioned, the Correa example too, be hopeful that Bogaerts can come back and at least be a better batter, and at least give them a little bit more lineup flexibility and be able to not necessarily have situations where they have, your Bryce Johnson's taking big at-bats or your David Peralta's taking big at-bats. Maybe they can make it a little bit better. I hope they can. I'm curious to see how the lineup works, and I'm very curious to see how Bogaerts plays coming back. If he's good immediately, that would be kind of funny. If it's like, you know what cured him? An injury, folks. That would be really funny, just narratively. But anyway, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, guys. The only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to send me all your questions on Twitter at Javiipeno, Javiipeno, or, just send some YouTube comments. I will be reading them probably tomorrow at some point. And also, speaking of tomorrow's episode, crossover with Jake Mastriani of Locked On Braves, going to dive deeper into the series, pitching matchups, talking about what's going on. Is the Braves, are they the type of team that's on the precipice of exploding? Hopefully not against us, but we'll talk to him about that. It'll be a lot of fun. Always love crossing over with Jake. He does a kick-ass job, by the way, over at Locked On Braves, so be sure to go check that out. But until next time, stay safe, and of course, stay faithful. My Friday faithful homies, take care.